The candles were already burning low when she stood up, cradling her glass like it held a secret. No one noticed at first, not even me. Not until she cleared her throat and said, too brightly, "I have something to say." The clink of silverware stopped. My fork hovered midair, dripping marinara onto the cloth napkin I'd spent too long folding. My brother leaned back. Her mom looked up from her untouched plate of chicken marsala. And she smiled. Elise always smiled before she did something irreversible. "To honesty," she said, lifting her glass, the wine trembling just enough to betray her nerves. "In relationships. In everything. Especially tonight." Everyone smiled. That's the worst part. They smiled and raised their glasses like it was just a cute thing she said. Like she was being poetic. But I knew. Not because I'd seen anything. Not because I had proof. I knew because I lived with that voice, that face, that exact expression for 11 years. I'd seen her bluff before, during poker nights with friends. I'd seen her lie to get out of speeding tickets. I'd even seen her feign tears once when she wanted to quit a job without giving notice. And this wasn't poetry. This was a scalpel wrapped in velvet. She sipped. Saturday. Crossed her legs. And went quiet. The conversations resumed awkwardly. My brother tried to fill the silence by joking about my predictable playlist. Elise laughed. She always laughed just enough to keep suspicion at bay. But she never made eye contact with me again that night. Later, while everyone was still buzzing around the dessert table, I slipped away to the bathroom, shut the door, and locked it. Not to use it. Just to breathe. And then I did something I never do. I sat on the edge of the tub, pulled out my phone, and opened her location. She'd shared it with me months ago during a snowstorm. Said it made her feel safer. Apparently, safety now meant turning it off. Location unavailable. I didn't go back to the table. I didn't touch my pie. I just stared at my reflection under the pale bathroom light and whispered, "Why now?" It wasn't the toast that broke me. It was the applause. Everyone clapped. As if her words were beautiful. As if they weren't the slow unraveling of something none of them realized was already undone. And still, I held it together. Because that's what I do. But the moment everyone left, and the door clicked shut behind the last guest, she looked at me and said the quiet part out loud. I meant what I said. I didn't ask what she meant. Because I already knew. I didn't answer her. Not right away. I think I nodded. Maybe I blinked. Honestly, I don't remember. It was one of those moments where your body's still functioning, but your mind is somewhere else entirely, someplace colder, quieter, watching your own life through a fogged-up window. I meant what I said. Those 5 words slid into the space between us like an invisible crack in the floorboards. She said it without a hint of remorse. Not even a tremor in her voice. No hesitation. The kitchen still smelled like rosemary and burnt sugar, remnants of the evening clinging to the air like ghosts. Our guests were gone, their laughter still echoing faintly in the house, unaware they had attended something more like a funeral than a family dinner. I turned back toward the dining table and saw the empty wine glasses, the crumpled napkins, the untouched piece of lemon tart on Elise's plate. Her fork rested diagonally across the edge, a tiny smear of yellow curd drying at the tip. She always said she hated citrus desserts. So why did she make one tonight? Do you want to talk about it? I asked finally, surprising even myself. My voice came out smaller than I meant it to, half breath, half whisper. I sounded like a child asking if monsters were real. She leaned against the counter, arms folded, one ankle casually draped over the other like she wasn't about to drop a bomb that would crater our entire life. What would we even talk about, Milton? My name. Not Babe. Not Han. Not the usual sweet sarcasm she used when she wanted to get out of taking the trash out. Milton. Like I was a stranger. I looked at her. I mean, really looked. She'd changed. Somewhere along the way, she stopped being my wife and became this well-polished version of herself. Hair blonder. Eyes sharper. Skin glowing like she was lit from within. Like someone else had been feeding that light, and I'd just been a placeholder. I cleared my throat. That toast. The way you said it. She cut me off. It was just a toast, Milton. You're overthinking it. Like always. There it was. Like always. That old familiar blade she used when she wanted to shut down the conversation before it even began. But this time, I didn't back down. No, not like always. Don't pretend that wasn't calculated. You stood there and looked everyone in the eye, and you said it like it was a confession. She stared at me. Not with guilt. Not even anger. Just emptiness. Like I was a problem she'd already solved in her mind. I don't want to fight, she said flatly, turning toward the sink. It's late. Let's just go to bed. She picked up a plate, and started rinsing it. Like that would rinse away the tension. Like water could wash off betrayal. I didn't move. I stood there like a statue, pulse hammering behind my ribs. You love someone else, I said. It wasn't a question. The sound of the faucet filled the room. She didn't deny it. Didn't whip around in protest. Didn't cry. She just stood there, scrubbing a spotless plate. My knees actually buckled. I had to grip the back of the chair just to stay upright. The silence screamed louder than anything she could have said. Then she turned off the water, dried her hands, turned to me, and said, I never wanted to hurt you. I really didn't. My vision blurred. I think my brain was trying to shield me from whatever came next. I wanted to scream, to smash something, to beg her to take it back. But all I managed was a question that felt stupid the second it left my mouth. Is it serious? She sighed. It doesn't matter, does it? I laughed. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was the kind of laugh that leaks out when your entire reality begins to rot at the seams. It mattered to me. Of course it mattered. But she was right. The moment she raised that glass tonight, everything we built, every small piece of our ordinary, quiet life, shifted beneath us. I just hadn't noticed the cracks until it was too late. The rest of the night passed like a blur. She went to bed. I stayed downstairs. I don't even remember falling asleep. I just woke up hours later on the living room couch, wrapped in the same blanket we used to share on movie nights. And as I sat there in the pale blue light of morning, one thought repeated over and over in my head. If she had never said that toast, would I still be living a lie? The morning after the dinner didn't feel like a morning at all. It felt like waking up underwater, quiet, distorted, with pressure in your chest that won't let up no matter how deeply you try to breathe. The blanket I had pulled over myself was bunched at my feet. My back ached from the couch. My mouth was dry, and my thoughts were louder than ever. I stayed still for a long time. I could hear her moving around upstairs. Not stomping, not rushing, just regular steps, maybe even a bit lighter than usual. As if nothing had happened. As if the glass she raised last night hadn't cracked the foundation of our marriage. At some point, I dragged myself into the kitchen. She wasn't there. Coffee had been brewed, fresh. Her favorite mug was in the sink, still wet. Mine was untouched. No note, no word, no apology. Just an empty room filled with the scent of Colombian roast and quiet detachment. I stood there for a long time, watching the steam curl from the pot. My hands were shaking again. It's not like I hadn't suspected something. Little things had been off. Her work calls that ended the moment I walked into the room. Her sudden interest in Pilates, though she still came home in jeans. A new perfume that wasn't us. Still, denial is a powerful thing. You build walls out of it. Decorate them with memories. And when those walls collapse, the debris is made of your own blind loyalty. I wasn't planning to snoop again. I swear. But I wasn't thinking straight either. I just needed something. Anything that could explain what was happening. Something that could ground me. So I climbed the stairs, slow and deliberate, each step feeling like I was rising into enemy territory. Our bedroom door was ajar. That wasn't like her. Elise closed everything. Drawers, cabinets, even the toothpaste cap. She was meticulous about control. But now, the drawer on her nightstand was half open, as if she'd been in a hurry. That was when I saw it. The envelope. Thick. Tucked between a notebook and a lip balm. I shouldn't have touched it. I know that. But I did. My name was written on the front in her handwriting. Soft, looping cursive I'd memorized over years of birthday cards and grocery lists. Inside was a stack of printed emails. At first, I didn't understand. The headers looked unfamiliar. But then I saw the thread. Back and forth. Dozens of messages between her and someone named Marion H. And Marion wasn't a woman. They joked about our house. About how quaint it was. About how Elise pretended to like my cooking, especially my infamous overcooked steaks. There were emojis, inside jokes, references to nights and hotels I'd never heard about. One message stood out like a knife to the gut. I almost told him last night, during dinner, but I chickened out. I wish you had been there to squeeze my hand under the table. I dropped the pages. They scattered across the carpet like broken promises. My stomach twisted. My fingers tingled. The world narrowed into a tunnel, the air thin and sharp. And through all that, one horrifying realization repeated in my mind. She was going to tell me, right there, in front of our families. She wanted to humiliate me, publicly, quietly, completely. I sat on the edge of the bed, the mattress still warm from where she'd been sitting moments ago. I could still smell her shampoo on the pillow. I should have felt angry. I should have wanted to scream, to break things. But instead, I just felt erased. It's a strange thing to feel like a ghost in your own marriage. To know that your presence is now just a formality. A costume someone else wears in front of you. The sound of the front door closing jolted me. I rushed to the window. Her car was already backing out of the driveway. No message. No explanation. Just silence and exhaust. I didn't follow her. Instead, I sat in that room, surrounded by printouts of the truth, and whispered the most pathetic question imaginable to no one. Why wasn't I enough? And for the first time since this all began, I realized maybe I never was. I don't remember how long I stayed in that room. I just remember the light changing, bright gold pouring in through the curtains, then softening to amber, and finally dimming into a pale gray. I hadn't eaten. I hadn't moved. The pages were still strewn across the carpet like shards of someone else's life. Her life. The one she lived when she left me behind with my quiet routines and my dumb belief that loyalty meant something. At some point, my phone buzzed. Once. Then again. I didn't want to look. I really didn't. But I did. The first was a group text. Elise had sent it to our dinner guests. Elise, thanks again for coming last night. It meant a lot to us. Can't beat food, wine, and family yellow heart. My stomach turned. I could barely process the words. That emoji. That cheery lie. Us? She said, us, like nothing had happened. Like she hadn't dropped a silent grenade in the middle of our dining room and walked away while everyone else kept eating. And then, another notification. This time from someone not in that group. It was from a contact I didn't recognize, just a number. Unknown. Hey, are you okay? I opened the message, confused. Then another one came. Unknown. She didn't mean for you to find those. Not like this. The blood drained from my face. I sat up, heart pounding. I typed back, hands trembling. Me. Who is this? No reply. Minutes passed. I stared at the screen, frozen. Then, finally. Unknown. I'm sorry. I should have stayed out of it. And just like that, they disappeared. Number no longer reachable. Either blocked or burner. I don't know. But the damage was done. Whoever it was, they knew about Elise. About me. About the emails. Which meant she hadn't just betrayed me. She'd been talking about me. With him. With others. Maybe even this person. I felt like I was being dissected in some secret conversation I was never invited to. At that point, I knew I couldn't stay in the house. Every corner felt haunted, by her scent, by her voice, by the memories now twisted into something cruel. I needed air. I grabbed my keys and left. Drove without a destination. The streets blurred past me, every building a smudge of light and shadow. I don't even remember turning, but somehow I ended up outside her office. The real estate firm. Clean glass windows, logo perfectly centered, blinds mostly drawn. Her car wasn't there. But the lights inside were still on. I parked across the street and sat in my truck, engine idling. Something in me wanted to go inside, to demand answers. But I didn't. Instead, I just watched. And that's when I saw them. A man in a slim black coat, walking out from the side entrance. Tall, sharp-jawed, confident in that casual, smug way I've never been. He wasn't in a rush. He strolled to a car I didn't recognize, unlocked it, and leaned inside like he owned the world. A moment later, she followed. Elise. Her coat was draped over her arm, her blouse slightly wrinkled. She was laughing. Not her fake laugh. The real one. The one she used to give me when I'd trip over something in the hallway or say something stupid but sweet. She said something to him. He said something back. Then she did it. She touched his chest. Just lightly. Like it was nothing. But it was everything. They didn't kiss. They didn't have to. The intimacy was already there, burning in every movement, every glance. I shut off the engine. Just sat in the dark, stunned. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't scream. Couldn't move. What was I supposed to do? Run across the street and confront them? Ask him if he liked lemon tart too? Ask her why she still wore her wedding ring? No. I did nothing. Because I was nothing to her now. They left in separate cars. But the damage was done. I drove home slowly, hands tied on the wheel. When I got back, the house felt different. Like it belonged to someone else. I sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by wine glasses we hadn't washed and lies I hadn't finished digesting. Then I looked at my phone again. The message was still there. She didn't mean for you to find those. Not like this. But maybe I was meant to. Maybe Elise wanted me to know, to feel it deeply but quietly, so she wouldn't have to be the villain out loud. She wanted to be the noble one who tried to be honest, while I became the man who didn't take the hint. But now I knew, and I wasn't going to play the silent fool anymore. The next day, I pretended. That was the beginning of my own little theater. Quiet, pathetic, and more painful than I expected. I woke up early, showered, made coffee, and even packed a lunch. I did all the things a husband would do if he hadn't seen his wife gently brush her fingers across another man's chest outside her office. I was trying to keep the shape of something that had already collapsed, like smoothing the sheets on a bed that had been burned down to its frame. Elise came downstairs an hour later, hair still wet from the shower, wearing one of her soft sweaters, the kind I used to bury my face into when she hugged me. I don't know if she looked more beautiful or more unfamiliar. She kissed me on the cheek, and I flinched. Not visibly, just under the skin. "You sleep okay?" she asked casually, pouring coffee like we were in some vintage commercial for happy couples. "Yeah," I lied, voice dry. She nodded, barely paying attention. "I might be late tonight. There's a dinner with the team." That sentence echoed. A dinner. With the team. Maybe it was true. Maybe there were other people going. Or maybe Marion H. would be there. Maybe she was lying straight to my face, again. But this time, I didn't let it slide past me like a breeze I couldn't fight. Instead, I looked at her for a beat too long. "Which restaurant?" She blinked, like the question caught her off guard. "Oh, somewhere near downtown. Wyatt's, I think." "Wyatt's. We'd been there. 3 anniversaries ago." I remembered because that was the night we slow danced outside the place in the parking lot, under those cheap little string lights they hang all year round. She cried that night. She said she'd never felt so safe. Now she was bringing someone else there. "Hope it goes well," I said, and I think we both knew I didn't mean it. When she left, I followed. Not right away, just enough delay to keep suspicion off the table. I waited until her car turned down the street, then I grabbed my jacket, keys, and a notepad I hadn't touched in years. I didn't know what I was doing, not really. I just knew that if I sat home and waited again, it would eat me alive. By the time I parked a block from Wyatt's, the sun was dipping into that early evening golden hour. I left my truck idling, then killed it when I realized how ridiculous I looked, breathing fog onto the windshield like a stakeout cliché. I told myself I wouldn't go inside. I would just watch. That was all. But I went inside. The hostess greeted me. "Dinner for one?" I hesitated. "No. Actually, I think someone I know is here. I'll just take a look around." I started scanning the tables, pretending to glance at menus, pretending not to be completely consumed by dread. It was a beautiful restaurant, cozy and dim with quiet jazz humming from the corners. I almost forgot why I was there. Until I saw her. Back corner table. Elise. Laughing again. The same laugh from the parking lot. Her back was partially turned, but I recognized the way she sat, slightly sideways, one leg tucked behind the other. She was with a man. He leaned in close. No one else was at the table. No team. No colleagues. Just the two of them and a bottle of red wine that I didn't recognize. I didn't charge over. I didn't scream. I didn't knock over the table like my gut wanted. I just stood still and let the moment carve itself into me. Then I walked out. Sat in my truck. I don't even remember turning the key. My notepad was in the passenger seat. Without thinking, I picked it up and wrote something on the first blank page. I didn't plan the words. They just came. I saw her, and she smiled like nothing she ever loved had died. I closed the pad and stared out at the streetlights blinking on one by one. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want drama. I didn't want to ruin anyone's life. I just wanted her to say it. To stop playing this quiet game of polite betrayal and say the words out loud. Admit it. End it. Name it. Because pretending I didn't know was starting to kill me faster than the truth ever could. And I think, deep down, she was counting on that. I drove home in silence, the kind that feels like it's made of glass, sharp at the edges, ready to shatter if you even breathe wrong. My fingers gripped the steering wheel harder than necessary. I wasn't angry, not in the fire and screaming kind of way. No, what I felt was quieter, denser, like grief that hadn't found a name yet. I wasn't just losing a wife, I was realizing she'd already left, and I'd been living in the ruins long after the lights had gone out. When I walked back into the house, everything was in its place. Our place. The throw pillows still arranged just how she liked them. The smell of her shampoo still faint in the upstairs hallway. It was eerie how normal everything looked, even though nothing felt normal anymore. I paced for a while, back and forth through the living room, then the kitchen, then back to the hallway again. I thought about going to bed, pretending like she hadn't spent the evening across a candlelit table with another man. But I couldn't sleep in that bed. Not after seeing her lean in the way she used to lean toward me. So instead, I sat down at the dining room table, the same one from a few nights ago. The same one where she toasted to honesty. I stared at the empty seat where she'd been, her wine glass still slightly clouded from where the dishwasher never fully rinsed it. And then, without knowing why, I reached into the drawer by the microwave and pulled out a pen. I grabbed a napkin from the holder and began to write. Not because I had something brilliant to say. Not because I had some cinematic moment planned. Just because I needed her to read something from me for once, without interruption, without her careful facial expressions, without deflection. I wrote, "You made a toast to honesty, and I believed you. I really did. But now I realize the toast was for him, not me. I saw you. At Wyatt's. And I heard your laugh. You laughed the way you used to when you loved me. If you ever did. I hope the wine was good. I hope he's worth what you're about to lose." It wasn't a threat. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't even angry. It was just the truth, pressed into a paper napkin, plain and unforgiving. I folded it in half, placed it neatly in the middle of her dinner plate, and walked away. I slept on the floor in my office that night, using an old winter coat as a pillow. I didn't dream. I just waited. When I heard her car pull into the driveway later than she said she'd be back, I kept my eyes closed and listened. The door opened. The soft click of her heels crossed the foyer. She paused. I imagined her setting down her bag, kicking off her shoes. A deep breath. Then came the silence. The kind of silence where even the house itself seems to hold its breath. I knew the moment she read the note. The air changed. I could feel it from the other room. No yelling. No sobbing. Just one soft thud as she pushed her chair back and sat down again, alone, with my words in her hand. I waited another minute. Then another. Still no sound. So I got up, padded quietly to the hallway, and leaned against the wall just far enough not to be seen. She was sitting there at the table, her hands folded around the napkin. She wasn't crying. She wasn't panicking. But her face had collapsed. That proud, unreadable mask she always wore had fallen away, and beneath it was someone I didn't recognize. Someone who knew she'd been caught, not just in the act, but in the hollow lie of her own self-image. She sat like that for a while. Then she whispered something I almost didn't catch. "I didn't want you to see. It wasn't to me. It was to herself. But I heard it." That was the confirmation I hadn't realized I still needed. She knew. She'd known what she was doing. This wasn't a messy mistake or some lapse in judgment fueled by distance or resentment. It was a choice. A series of choices, actually. And now that they had a face, my face, looking back at her with the weight of knowing, she finally saw the cost. I stepped back, walked quietly into the bathroom, and shut the door behind me. I stared at my reflection under the same cold light that had once illuminated our toothbrushes side by side. And I asked myself, aloud this time, why am I still here? Morning came with the kind of heaviness I'd never known before. The sun filtered through the blinds like it had any right to pretend things were okay, casting long gold bars across the floor of the hallway. I didn't want to open the bathroom door. I had slept upright on the edge of the tub, still wearing yesterday's clothes, with the faint echo of her whisper looping through my mind. "I didn't want you to see." The door was closed, but it felt like the whole house had shifted overnight. I finally stepped out, rubbing the stiffness from my neck, expecting to see the usual. Her sitting at the kitchen island with her coffee and phone, acting like the world was still spinning the way she wanted it to. But she wasn't there. The kitchen was too quiet. The coffee pot was untouched. There was no clink of her spoon against her cup, no scent of citrus and lavender. The house felt stalled, like it was waiting for something. I checked the living room. Empty. Her purse was still by the door, her jacket slung over the hook like she hadn't gone far. I turned the corner to the dining room and found her standing there. Same spot. Same chair. Same napkin. Unfolded now, spread flat on the table, like she'd been staring at my words all night. She didn't look at me right away. Her eyes were red, and not from sleep. Her shoulders sagged in a way I had never seen before, as if the truth had finally landed and buried her beneath its weight. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. She finally spoke first. "How long were you standing there last night?" I thought about lying. But what was the point? Long enough to hear everything that mattered. Her lips parted, but the apology didn't come. Not yet. She just turned her gaze back to the napkin, tapping one corner like she was trying to memorize its edges. I didn't want it to be this way, she said. Her voice was hoarse, the kind of raw you hear after someone's cried silently for too long. I wanted to. I don't know. I thought I could handle it better. You mean like better, I said before I could stop myself. The words came out flat, but the bitterness was unmistakable. She winced. I didn't want to hurt you. That made me laugh. Actually laugh. You just wanted to rearrange the pain, right? Shift it around like a chess piece. Make it neat. Contained. Polite. I stepped closer now, not angry, just tired. So unbelievably tired. You toasted to honesty with our family sitting there, and the whole time you were already gone. With him. She opened her mouth to argue, but couldn't. The silence between us said everything. I kept going, because I couldn't stop. You know what hurts the most? It's not the cheating. It's not the dinner. It's not even Wyatt's. It's that you thought I'd stay small. That I'd stay silent. You built your lie around the idea that I'd never push back. I didn't think that, she whispered, but even she didn't sound convinced. I did, I said. I thought that too. That I was the guy who'd forgive anything, make excuses, clean up after the emotional mess like it was just another spilled glass of wine. But something's different now, Elise. She looked up then, really looked. Her eyes searched mine like she was finally seeing me again, not as the backup husband she leaned on while her real life played out elsewhere, but as the man who had quietly bled for her loyalty without asking for anything grand in return. I don't love him, she said suddenly, like a reflex. I froze. What? She shook her head slowly, a bitter half-smile tugging at her mouth. I don't love him. It's not even about him. It's about not feeling seen. I started disappearing, and he noticed. That's all it was. I stepped back, absorbing that in silence. She wasn't confessing because she wanted forgiveness. She was untangling herself, distancing herself from the affair like it was just a symptom, not a betrayal. And yet, there was something deeply pathetic in how transparent it all sounded now. So what do you want me to do with that? I asked. Say thank you. Say I understand. She finally broke. Tears started down her face, the real kind, not performative, not controlled. And still, I felt nothing. Not hate, not love. Just the slow, cold departure of everything that had once held us together. I think you should leave today, I said, and even I was surprised at how calm I sounded. She nodded. She didn't beg. She didn't scream. She just nodded like she'd been expecting those words for longer than I had. I turned around and walked away, leaving her alone with the napkin and the ruins of the person I used to be. Every step down that hallway felt like shedding old skin, confused, scarred, but finally free of pretending. What came next, I didn't know. But for the first time in what felt like years, I wasn't afraid of it. It took her an hour to pack. Maybe less. I didn't hover. I stayed outside on the back porch with my coat zipped up and a mug of reheated coffee in my hands. The air was brisk, the sky gray and still, and the wind barely moved, but inside me, things were shifting faster than I could process. When the front door finally opened and closed again, it was quiet. No slamming, no dramatic pauses. Just a soft click, final, like the last period on a sentence that didn't need to be rewritten anymore. I heard her car start. I didn't get up to watch her go. I didn't need to. Instead, I looked out across the yard, where the grass was brown and brittle but still holding on. A few leaves scattered along the fence line. The same yard I used to rake while Elise laughed on the phone with her mother. The same yard where I once set up a string of lights and a cheap speaker just to dance with her on our anniversary because she said she wanted magic without leaving home. It all felt like someone else's memories now. I didn't cry. I thought I would. I thought there would be that cinematic moment where everything inside spills out. But the truth is, I'd cried already. Every day that I stayed silent. Every time I second-guessed my gut. Every night I cooked dinner for someone who had already emotionally packed her bags. Now there was only quiet. But it was a different kind of quiet. One that didn't weigh on my chest. A week passed. Then two. I didn't tell many people what happened. Not at first. It felt like breaking glass all over again, painful, messy, hard to explain without cutting yourself open in the process. But eventually, I did start talking. My brother came over with beers and awkward attempts at humor. Aunt Celeste from Michigan called out of nowhere, said she had a spare room and some bad advice if I ever needed both. But what helped most wasn't any of that. It was something small. I signed up for a woodworking class at a community center 2 towns over. Just a beginner group, no big deal. I almost backed out the morning of, but I went. I walked in, sat at a bench with 6 strangers, and for 3 hours, I didn't think about her. Not once. There was this woman there, Julia. She was making a jewelry box for her daughter. I made something crooked that was supposed to be a spice rack, but ended up looking more like a birdhouse for a bird that had no standards. She laughed. Not at me. Just genuinely. I didn't flirt. I didn't need to. But something about sitting next to someone new, someone who didn't know the version of me that got left behind, it gave me a strange kind of hope. Not hope that I'd fall in love again. Not yet. Maybe not for a long time. But hope that I was still in here somewhere. That I hadn't disappeared like she said. A few nights ago, I pulled out that same notepad again. The one I'd used in the truck outside Wyatt's. I wrote something on the last page. It wasn't long. Just a sentence. I'm still here. And you know what? I believed it. For the first time in years, I actually believed it. This wasn't the ending I thought I'd have. But maybe it's the one I needed. And maybe that's enough. Because while Elise drove away, thinking she'd escaped something, what she really did was free me. She toasted honesty. And in the end, I was the only one who drank it. And I survived. Better yet, I'm starting to live again.